So this is a conference committee meeting. The members on budget and tax and appropriations. And I'm going to ask Mr. Romans to go ahead and lead us through the document.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you have on the screen, and hopefully you all have copies for yourselves, the items in difference in the operating budget. There are 75 amendments in difference, and then there may be some other pages that you want to talk about. So I thought we'd just go right down the list and see if the subcommittee chairs have had a chance to work them out. Items 1 and 2. Item 1 is in the judiciary. The Senate had restored a cut to a merit increase for judiciary employees.
We can adopt the Senate.
All right. Item 2, also in the judiciary, related to a capital improvement funding. The Senate had cut $500,000.
Adopt the Senate.
In the high 500,000, you want to take the Senate position?
Do it on the
No.
number two is Senate. We'll go with the House with the
3.5%
third.
merit
We'll go with the House with
increase
the third.
funding. There's
Okay.
two
Number 1s.
different ones. Adopt the Senate in both of them. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then the number 2, you're taking the House position?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And number 3 in the Office of Attorney General was a technical amendment related to the BRFA that the Senate had added. The Senate made a small cut to the Office of the Attorney General.
House.
Okay. And then in number 4, again, the Senate made a 22,000 turnover cut to the Office of the Attorney General.
House.
Okay. Public Service Commission, the Senate increased the turnover rate from 4% to 6%, saving almost 300,000.
House.
Okay, and then Amendment 6 is Energy Administration. The Senate struck some language that the House had added, fencing some money for bill payment assistance.
So,
Yeah. We're going
Yeah.
to modify that, right?
yep.
To release 7.5 million for the original use.
You got it.
Okay, and then in the, I still think of it as the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, but it has a better name now. There was 100,000 fenced by the Senate for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southern Maryland.
So Chair, I was hoping that we could take the Senate position on that. That's one of our senators that this was important to.
All right, so that was not one that was included in the supplemental, right?
No, it wasn't included in the supplemental. No, sir.
May I back up to number 6, please? If you
Uh-oh.
don't mind. Madam Chair, and
Yes, go ahead.
just a question, does that allow enough, the 7.5 million for construction of that gas pipeline, gas improvement project for the Eastern Shore for
Madam Chair.
the University of Maryland Salisbury campus and the correctional institution over there?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So Delegate Bight, so that allows them to do all that and more.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that they had enough to do that. Thank you.
Delegate Beitzel, this is your happy day. Okay. Let's go back to the restricting the $100,000 in grants for boys and girls. I want to hold that item. Okay, so let's just hold it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Amendment 8 is in the same office. It relates to the victims of crime. The Senate just added a little bit of language indicating to I think what was existing House language on how to define quasi-state entities.
Okay, we can take the Senate position.
Okay. All right, Amendment 9 is in the Department of Planning. Senate restricted funding pending the conversion of a contractual position.
Senate. Adopt Senate.
Okay. Amendment 10 is in the Emergency Management Agency. Added some language and stating intent, task force and so forth, and asking for a report.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. All right, and then also in MIMS, There's a restriction on funding pending a report on the state's response to the pandemic.
House,
All right, great. Page 2. Controller's office, there's 2 item 12s there, the general funds and special funds. There was a disagreement about how much to cut for turnover. Senate cut less.
Right. Adopt the Senate position on both of those comptroller items.
Okay, Amendment 13 in lottery, it's just how much advertising money to cut. House cut 3 million, Senate cut 2 million.
Adopt Senate.
All right, and then Information Technology Office Department. The Senate added language stating the intent about the state websites display the names, titles, and photos of secretaries and deputy secretaries.
Adopt the Senate.
Okay. And then in the Department of Transportation, the next couple are the Amendment 15, increased the debt outstanding limit. This was in reaction to the supplemental budget number 4, I believe it was.
And that's Senate position. Delegate Corman. Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair.
And then Amendment 16, there was just some modifications to House language in the Senate relating to suicide barriers and bridges. Just
Right.
expanded it a little bit.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Amendment 17 relates to the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit and restricting some funds contingent on a federal grant.
Does that need to be modified?
Madam Chair, I think you want to modify it so it's broader than just the build grant, but any grant
Right.
from the federal government about the project.
Have you got that?
perfect.
Sounds good.
So modify that.
Yep.
Okay.
Amendment 18, Department of Transportation restricts funds pending a report on modernizing VEEP. Senate language.
Yeah. Adopt Senate. Yeah.
All right, and then Amendment 19, restricted funds pending a report on expanding bus service at Trade Point Atlantic. This was Senate language.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Amendment 20 relates to adding a MARC station in East Baltimore. Just restricted funding pending a report.
Adopt Senate.
Amendment 21 restricts funding pending a report on helicopter noise mitigation at Martin State Airport.
Can I ask you a question about that? I thought Martin State Airport was closing down.
The business, I think the company is closing. I don't think the airport is closing.
Okay.
Glenelg Martin is closing. Yeah.
Adopt Senate.
Martin Marietta.
Amendment
Senate.
20, sorry.
Go ahead.
Amendment 22, Department of Natural Resources. There's funding restricted for out of Prince George's County POS local funding pending submission of evidence of a loan agreement related to a capital project.
Adopt Senate.
Okay, next page. All right, Amendment 23, also Department of Natural Resources. The Senate struck language restricting funds for a vendor to do a coal combustion byproduct study.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Okay, and then now we're into the Department of Health. The first item is the Senate modified language to reduce the amount of funds restricted pending a report on a mass vaccination site in Montgomery County.
Yeah, we can strike that language entirely. They got their site.
Okay.
Good.
Amendment 25 is amending the amount of money being taken from amends a contingent reduction based on your BRFA decisions on the Medical Cannabis Commission. Essentially, the Senate restored a little bit of money. It took less money from the Cannabis Commission.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Similar situation in Amendment 26 on the Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors and Therapists.
Adopt Senate.
And the similar situation, so this one is striking language, making a contingent reduction related to the State Board of Examiners of Psychologists. Senate rejected, but the House is done.
We'll take the Senate.
Okay, Amendment 28, now we're into DDA. The Senate modified some language restricting funds pending a report.
Adopt Senate.
Okay, 29. The Senate added language. This relates to federal changes in federal law, basically saying that money from some home and community-based services waiver money that we're receiving will be used for a rate increase. Or most of it will be used for a one-time rate increase for community providers.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Amendment 30 is the same issue in the Medicaid program. Again, restricting money for the home and community-based services waiver for a rate increase.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Amendment 31. All right, so this I think is just your cigarette restitution funds. This relates to the Boost decision. I don't know if you want to hold this until you get to Boost.
Yeah, hold both of those cigarette restitution fund until we get to Boost.
Okay. Amendment 33, behavioral health. This is again relating to that home and community-based services money and just wanting a report on how it's going to be used.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Amendment 34 is the Community Health Resources Commission. You struck a contingent reduction, so you have no cut to the amount the Community Health Resources Commission gets.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. 35, Department of Labor, just is asking them for a report on upgrading their beacon on mobile application.
Okay. Adopt Senate.
Okay. Now we're in the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, Amendment 36. Senate struck language restricting funds for the continued operations of the pre-release units.
Adopt Senate.
All right, and then Senate restricted funds pending a report on inmate medical care during COVID-19.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Amendment 38, also in public safety, restricts funds pending submission of a report on murder-involved supervisees.
Adopt Senate.
And 39 is a cut that Senate took related to vacancies in public safety, $2 million.
Adopt the House.
Okay. On to the next page. Page 40, also Amendment 40, public safety, Senate struck language restricting funding pending a report on substance abuse treatment.
House position.
Okay. 41, Senate restricted funds for a report on the Maryland School for the Deaf.
Adopt the Senate.
All right, so Amendment 42, the Senate restricted funds or fenced funds for an adult high school pilot program. The governor has funded that in the supplemental, so I think you can just strike the Senate, take the House position here and have no fencing.
Okay,
Good.
good.
Okay, 43, amends contingent language. I think you want to strike all of this language, and we'll get to some things related to MSD and the blueprint money later on.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Amendment 44, this is where you're authorizing the governor to do a budget amendment for some blueprint related costs like the AIB and a few other things, and the Senate just struck out the financial system from the list of things that he could bring in by budget amendment.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. 45 and 46 are boost.
Hold.
Okay. Okay, 47 and 48 relate to fencing money in the Bowie State University for a specific program there, the Center for Law, Social Justice, and Civic Engagement.
Adopt Senate.
Okay, so then you're on to 49 in the Department of Commerce. Just Senate restricting funds pending a report on the amount of funding that Lockheed Martin has received over the years from the state.
Adopt Senate.
Amendment 50 is Department of Environment. It reduces the amount of pay restoration PAYGO funding authorized for this specific project, the Valley Proteins wastewater treatment plant upgrade.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. Also in the Department of Environment, Amendment 51. There was a restricting funds pending submission of a report. I think that we have some new language. Yep.
Yes.
Can we make that a little bigger? Thank you. All right, so the highlighted part is what's changing in the Senate language.
Okay, adopt Senate with the Senate modifications.
Okay. And now we go back to 52. Yeah, so top of the page, 52, Senate restricted funds pending a report on some chemicals. I'm not trying to pronounce that.
Adopt Senate.
Okay. All right, now state police. There's funding being restricted pending action to improve diversity. That's language. Amendment 53.
I'd like to hold that.
Okay. And then 54, the Senate made a cut that the House had not to the state police related to turnover.
Did I already go with the
Yeah,
House
you
position?
do the House. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Amendment 55. Now we're in the State Reserve Fund. All right, so the House had originally restricted money from this is some of the POS repayment, and the House had restricted most of the money for parks to make improvements to the state park, and the Senate had added to that a restriction for state-owned lakes. The governor put $2 million in the supplemental for the state-owned lakes.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to go back to the House position where there's some compromise.
In other words, the state-owned lakes are in the governor's supplemental, and we don't actually need that language here.
I think that is true. Yeah.
Isn't there a difference in the funding levels?
Yes, there's a $1 million difference in the funding level.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
Chair, whomever,
Yep.
2 million in the supplemental, there's $1 million in a bill that's floating through, and I don't know if it's totally passed yet or not. So if you put the two together, that's 3 million. So we need to find out the status of the bill. And if the bill passed, then that equals 3 million. On the other hand, if it doesn't, then it would be cut back to 2 million if we accept what the House did and don't add it in here. But I would like to ask, because one of the purposes of this was, we've been trying for years to get a dredging project at the lake. I think, Madam Chair, you're familiar with this.
I am.
In the Arrowhead Cove. So
Yep.
regardless of what it is, I'd like for us to be able to fence in here in this 21 million, if that's what we go with, or the 21 plus the 3, that about $1 million go toward the pilot dredging project at Deep Creek at the Arrowhead Cove to go along with what the state has already put in and what the county's agreed to put in. So we can get this pilot done. It's number one, see what's the best way to dredge. Number two, see if it's going to work.
Why don't we hold this, all right, and see if we can't get the language right to help you out, okay? Because I don't want to talk about Deep Creek Lake next year.
We don't either.
Unless it's how much snow and where's the fishing good. Now it's me and my support of Deep Creek Lake. But let's get this, let's find out where the bill is.
The bill is in the House. It looks like it hasn't moved in the House yet.
We're just going to hold it. Why don't we just hold it? Let's move
We'll
on.
just hold it. Let's don't get stuck on it, okay?
Yep.
Department of Human Services, Amendment 56. Just a difference about how much of the deficiency for foster care to cut. We don't believe they need the money.
House.
Yeah.
57 is language. All right, so the House had added language limiting the governor's budget amendment authority. related to the federal stimulus, and the Senate struck that piece. I mean, given what happened with the supplemental, I think you can
Yeah.
agree with me.
We can take the Senate position.
All right, Amendment 58, you have slightly different views on the state fleet passenger, like how much zero emission cars basically is the issue here, and what your definition is. The Senate aligned the House language to align with the Senate bill that had passed. If someone can explain this better than me, they're welcome to jump in.
25%. Da, 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 da.
I mean, it's the climate now
Yeah, that's fine with me.
language.
Okay,
Taking the Senate. All right, Amendment 59. The Senate had amended a report from the Workers' Comp Commission and others, just that the House had added.
House.
Okay. Amendment 60 is makes Department of Human Service, and basically amended language the House had added to make the Department of Human Services the lead agency on a joint agency, multi-agency report.
Senate,
Coordinated public benefits.
Senate. Adopt Senate.
All right, 61 is the Senate struck a section on the Maryland Transit Administration operations. I think this was something the House had added before the supplemental that sort of addressed the concern. So I think that.
Okay, so we can adopt the Senate, correct, Delegate Corman? Okay,
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
thank you. Adopt Senate.
So the Senate restricted funding in 62 pending a report from agencies that have had issues with personally identifiable information and audit reports. I understand that maybe there's a slight change to the Senate language.
Right. Is
Okay.
there a modification?
Is there you got a sheet on this?
There's no sheet, Mr. Chairman. It's just a modification that one of the senators requested to change PII to cybersecurity generally. It's just a slight change. And one of your senators requested it.
Is there any substance to that?
I mean, it's just broadening the language a little bit. It's just a clarification.
I'm fine with the modification.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good with that one. All right. Let's keep going.
Yep.
All right. Items 63 through 69 were these were the previously supplemental budget items that brought in all the blueprint money, and the language was added. And I think you want to strike all that language because the governor replaced the blueprint money with federal funds. And if we can make this a little bit bigger, might as well talk about this now. So this was the money that came in basically based on the Relief Act for school reopening and summer school, behavioral health, tutoring, and so forth. And what we're suggesting is you amend the supplemental budget where the governor put it in federal funds to specify how the funds will be allocated.
Old switch.
And we're working on the language on that, but this is how the money would actually allocate by county.
Okay,
So we're striking 63. You meant 268, didn't you?
Yes, sorry, 68, correct.
wait a minute.
So
You
63.
done 63, 62?
Yeah, we did 62.
Yeah, 62 is that personally identifiable
Okay.
information. So then
All right.
63 through 68 are all State Department of Ed, all related to the supplemental that had brought in blueprint money. The governor's, so you both had added versions of language to that, but that special funds is going away because it's the new supplemental. So we're saying strike all the language you added before, and then we will add new language that actually reflects the allocations based on what's on your screen.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, all right, so then we're up to 69 here at the bottom of this page, Department of Aging.
Excuse me, Chair. Did
Yep.
we,
As soon as
I don't think we took any type of formal action on 69.
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Doing it
No,
right
I think-
now.
Okay.
18.
69 is Department of Aging restricting federal funds for or restricting federal funding for home delivered meals. Two, to be used at the discretion of the local area agencies on aging.
You can adopt the Senate.
Moving on. 70 is also Department of Aging. It seems it's basically the same language in a second place in the supplemental.
Adopt Senate.
71, Department of Health, adding a 10th language and requiring a report on equitable COVID-19 vaccine distribution. And 72
Senate.
does the same thing.
Yeah, both of them adopt Senate.
Okay. 73. All right. So in 73, you had each fenced money in the Department of Labor for various things, some of which were funded in the supplemental. And the governor got rid of the whole pot of money that you were fencing the money from. He withdrew it, the supplemental. So I guess let's talk about fencing for a minute. We're putting this on the screen.
Yeah.
So there was one thing, which is number 1 in this item that you're looking at. Can you make that a little bit bigger?
Stem cell. Yeah.
So the governor funded STEMs. He took care of most of the things he fenced for. What he did not take care of is this $76,000 on this sheet in front of you for the agricultural center in Montgomery County to pay their storm water fees. And then the number 2 here is a new item we understood there was interest in fencing money for. So what we're suggesting, since that money that you were using to fence stuff is no longer there,
Right.
is that you would also fence money out of the Department of Budget and Management statewide account for the Baltimore Symphony and for the Purple Line. The governor has not funded the Baltimore Symphony, so if you want, you can leave the $1.5 million fence in and hope that he funds it later. He did fund the Purple Line. So what we're suggesting here is you don't need to fence the $500,000 for the Purple Line any longer. So he's saying strike that. And then if you want to fence things for this Montgomery County Agricultural Center and for the micro bridge loan account, you could do so out of this pot of money. Since you don't need the $500,000 for the Purple Line, you could use it for these other things.
I'm going to suggest we hold on all this fencing and figure this out.
Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Yep.
I'm on 74.
74.
Yeah, 74. So this was in the Inspector General for the State Department of Ed. The Senate cut $30,000 to increase turnover, and I think we have some alternative action here. Yeah. So what this language would do is actually cut part of the supplemental budget, cut 3 positions for the Inspector General, and then down at the bottom there, you can see add some language saying that they can't spend some of the funding until they submit a report about how they're communicating with families.
I support that language. The budget language.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Amendment 75, which we'll get on the screen in a second, is Senate language that just asks USM for a report on how they're using the money they got in the supplemental budget to expand programming for health professionals.
House position.
Yeah.
Did I miss something on, when we were back talking about the lakes and that fund that we were taking it from, I guess that was for the makeup payments in program open space.
Correct.
Was there a position, did we have something on next gen farming somewhere?
We have a BRFA item related to next gen farm.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right, so I think we went through 75. So there's some additional actions that we wanted to put in front of you related to the operating budget. These first 2 are adding money to the General Assembly's budget for the Office of Policy Analysis. I think Vicki Gruber's here.
Yes,
Want her to talk about this?
That's fine.
You're good?
that's fine.
All right, let's scroll down to the next. All right, can we make that a little bigger? All right, in the Military Department and MEMA, this is money related to the Amos Fund and asking for a report on sort of their maintenance of effort and sort of how things are going with that program.
We're good.
Yep.
Okay, great. Then the next item, I believe, is going to be the controller's office. So this language, if you were to adopt it, restricts 400,000 in the controller's budget and asks him to use the money to provide some oversight on the use of federal stimulus money, as he's expressed some concern about the appropriate use of that money. So you'd be restricting $400,000 for him to provide oversight, and then you're asking for reporting on a regular basis on what he is finding.
I think that's an appropriate thing to do. So
Fine.
I favor adopting this.
It's fine.
All right, this next item is in the Department of Transportation and the Port Administration. There's both some budget language and narrative relating to reimbursing truckers who travel in that area around the port.
I'd like to hold this.
All right, is that all we have on the budget? Until supplemental budget, I guess?
Yep.
Yes, all right, so now we're into supplemental budget. There were a few thoughts that we had for you on things you may want to do. Just to clarify some things. This item 23 in the supplemental was money for, I think for UMS, for the Comprehensive Cancer and Organ Transplant Center. I gather you usually add this language that's shown there when it's in the capital budget, just to say what you think the maximum state commitment is. Don't know if you want to do that in this case.
That's fine.
Okay. Is the Senate okay with that?
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. The item below is so as you expected, there's money in the supplemental for response pay. It does not specify the time periods or that it's retroactive, although that was the intent. So we're suggesting in items 59 and 60, you add language making it clear what you intended that money to be used for.
Yep.
Agreed.
Okay. And then if we scroll down to the bottom there. Yeah. All right. So this one may need some more thought, but sorry, I can go up. So items 133 and 139 were the 75 million for apprenticeship and workforce training. This was our attempt to try to make sure that the money is targeted to those entities serving people in the jurisdictions with high unemployment rates. I don't know if there's additional ideas or if you feel like you need this language.
Chairman, you mentioned this to me. Did you have other ideas or that you wanted to incorporate?
This is Jim Rosapep, if I can jump in.
Oh,
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I like the idea of targeting it. The president's work group on the virus response came up with a recommendation that is in a Senate bill that's moving through that basically would put the money out by formula to the local workforce boards. The bill, sorry?
To what?
To the
By
local
formula?
workforce, to the local workforce agencies, to,
Okay.
Jason Perkins Cohen in Baltimore and, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it would go by formula, as opposed to setting up a system where people have grants to the state. And it's based on the same thing we did in the Recovery Act, where we put money out by formula to the workforce boards. And the idea would be that it would be to subsidize apprenticeship, but the workforce boards would figure out who to give it to. That's the idea.
Okay. Let me, if you don't mind, Senator, I'd like to just hold this and we work this out together.
That's fine. No, thank you very much.
Opposed to anything you're saying, I just want to actually walk through it and understand it better. Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay.
Okay. I think we might have one more thing here for supplemental, one or two. Oh, yes. All right. So supplemental also added money for the Center for School Safety for capital improvements, security improvements. And this language in the top there is just adding language that you typically add about how the money shall be distributed. And further says that the money shall be administered by the Center for School Safety, which I understand is the desire for.
That's fine.
And then 158 is I'm sorry, is the House okay with that?
Yeah, yeah.
And then on 158 is, there's also money being added for school security in non-public schools. And again, we're suggesting you add the language that you typically add to that money, kind of targeting it more to the schools with higher percentages of free and reduced price meals, among other things.
Yes.
Okay.
That's good. Okay. I think, other than the hold items, that's it on the operating budget. We are ready to go through the BRFA as well. If you'd
Okay.
like to do that.
So these were the items for the BRFA. The first item relates to the alteration of the mandate for the Office of Attorney General. Based on the action you took in the operating budget, you would want to take the House position, which was to strike the provision.
Okay.
Once I find it.
The next item was repealing the mandate for the Maryland Loan Assistance repayment program for foster care recipients. The House adopted the provision. The Senate rejected the provision.
So we want to concur with the Senate.
Okay.
Yep, that's fine.
For this next item, I think it'll be easier to look at this chart. So basically this relates to the funding for the Senior Prescription Drug Assistance Program and Community Health Resources Commission. The House adopted DLS recommendation, which was to phase in a change in the distribution of the Care First premium tax exemption, which would have given a little more money to the Community Health Resources Commission this year, but in fiscal 2022, but in 2023, they would receive less money. The Senate adopted a different action that fully funds both programs through 2024 by leaving the current distribution in place for fiscal 2022. In fiscal 2023 and beyond, it makes the Senior Prescription Drug Assistance Program the sole recipient of the funding, but provides a diversion of the provider assessment revenue to the Community Health Resources Commission in fiscal 2022 and 2023. And also in fiscal 2022, it makes up kind of the gap for the Senior Prescription Drug Assistance Program from the provider assessment funding.
Yeah, concur with the Senate.
Okay. So that takes care of 8 BNT alt and 8 DLS alt. 9 tech is the Senate added an additional technical amendment to make Medicaid an authorized use of the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange Fund, which is consistent with the action you took to transfer funds in those 2 years to Medicaid.
Concur with the Senate.
The next item, this is a provision you both adopted, which authorized the transfer of the marketplace facilitator revenue to cover the shortfalls in the ETF based on the actions in the item in the supplemental budget. You would want to strike this item.
Right. Strike.
The first item relates to the transfer tax repayment schedule with the critical maintenance, and you would probably want to hold this since the item is on hold in the operating.
Right. Okay.
So item 27 relates to the Board of Professional Counselors and Therapists Fund, transfers to BHA. The Senate lowered the amount of the transfer based on the action you took in the operating budget. You want to concur with the Senate.
Concur with the Senate.
Similarly, for the transfer to the Medical Cannabis Commission, which is the next
Right.
item.
Concur with the Senate.
Item 29 authorizes the use of the local income tax reserve fund to kind of forward fund the cost for COVID. The House rejected that. The Senate adopted that. The supplemental budget, as you heard in the briefing earlier, has a contingent reduction related to this action.
So we need to concur with the Senate?
Yes.
Okay. Will do.
The next item, item 34, requires employees in the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services facilities that are closed by the end of the year to be transferred to vacant positions in other facilities. The House rejected that item. The Senate adopted the original provision.
Concur with the Senate.
Item 101 DLS additional would authorize a transfer of $700,000 from the Board of Psychologists to BHA. The House adopted that item. The Senate rejected the provision, and based on the action you took in the operating budget, you would want to
I concur with the Senate.
The last item on that page authorizes a transfer of $1 million from the Charlotte Hall Veterans Home Fund to the general fund. In fiscal 2022, the House adopted that. The Senate rejected the provision.
Please concur with the Senate.
The next item requires a transfer from the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission of $5 million to the general fund. The House adopted that provision. The Senate also concurred, but we understood that there might be some interest in modifying that.
Yeah, can we hold this too? Because I might have some language issue too.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, the last item on that page alters the mandate for MTA in fiscal 2022 to level fund the operating budget rather than requiring it to increase by 4.4%. The Senate adopted this as a new provision.
Concur with the Senate.
Okay, we have a few additional BRFA items for your consideration. The first provision would create a maternal and child health population improvement fund in the HSCRC using assessment. And then those funds could be used in Medicaid and the Prevention and Health Promotion Administration, and it would be available through 2025.
Fine with the House.
Yep.
Okay, and there's two items on this page. The first reduces the Bay Restoration Fund eligible costs for private wastewater treatment plant facilities to 50%.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and the bottom page is the one you asked about earlier, Chairman, is the Next Generation Farmland Acquisition Program. It would provide funding of $2.5 million per year from fiscal 2023 through 2027. And it would fund it through reprogramming the transfer repayment.
Yes.
Chris.
I think you've covered everything, right, Tanya?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've been through everything once. You've got maybe 5 things, 6 things on hold. Do you want to go through the holds again today? Do you want to break and talk some things out? How would you like to proceed?
We'd like to have a break And
Fine idea.
yeah, and we'll decide when we need to get back together, but soon.
As in hours soon?
Wait a minute. I don't, no. Wait a minute.
We go in at 7, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Tomorrow. I think tomorrow.
Do you want to set a time now for tomorrow, or do you want to?
Let me look. I'd say after floor. Yeah, why don't we do it early afternoon? What time are you going in tomorrow afternoon?
Well, we've got floor to 10:30 to 12:30 theoretically.
Okay.
I have hearings though at 1.
Oh, do you?
Mhm.
Can we do 12:30-ish?
I mean, we've been running late on the floor is all.
Okay, all right.
Although the hearings I'm looking at this, I don't know if staff is, a budget and if Eric is on here or not, but it looks like we might be quick on those hearings.
So what time have you started?
Hold
What
on.
time have you started your hearings?
Oh. We could probably squeeze it in. I mean, I don't think it's gonna take too long.
Huh?
We've only got one bill to hear, but then we're supposed to do voting afterwards, so. But
I tell you what, it's unusual, but I have an appointment tomorrow between 3:30 and 4:30. Can we do later in the day?
yes,
Okay. Let's say we can get back to you either 4:30 or 5. Just hold on, because we haven't got that much to go through. So we can do it quickly and we'll be talking in between. So
right.
let's say 5, just to be cautious. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right.
It should only take you probably 15 minutes. I mean, you only have a
I
few.
know.
Right. No,
I'm just afraid to say 4:30. Yeah, because the meeting is not in my control.
right. Okay, let's just shoot for 5. I've got
Let's
another
do-
meeting then, but I think this takes precedent.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay?
Betty. And
All right.
work out that, the lake stuff and all that stuff,
Yep.
labor stuff, apprenticeships, all that kind of language. Let's try to work it out in advance so we go very quickly.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.